Hey, everybody. I'm Jordan Tennenbaum, the host of the Celigo Technology Leaders Podcast. I'm joined, as usual, by my co host, Mark Simon, our Vice President of Strategy, as well as Assad Sadiki, the CIO of Celigo. Assad, great to have you here, man. How are you doing today?
Thanks for having me. I'm doing great. How are you guys?
Doing real well. Appreciate you
Fantastic.
asking.
Thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
Yes, it is absolutely an honor to have our CIO on the podcast. This has been in the works for a while, but I want to break open with a question that I like to ask our guests. And I think probably a lot of people want to know about you because you are a CIO with a storied past of a large technology company. But could you tell us a little bit about your story and kind of how you got to where you are in terms of being our CIO?
Yeah. I've in terms of my being a CIO and how I got here. I've always intrigued by engineering, by technology when I was growing up. So my curiosity led me to build products that people can use every day. I started my career as a software engineer for a fintech organization, building a product for large banks, global banks who use the product to engage their customers. So I wanted to understand how businesses operate. That curiosity took me into business technology, where I consulted as a solution architect for a while, solving complex challenges and scale problems for those businesses, and working with various departments in the process. This exposure actually gave me different perspectives and introduced me to various industries and verticals, and that helped me transition into where I'm today in supporting enterprises, scaling growth, and as they say, like rest is history. It got me into a role where I am now supporting Celigo's scale and their transformation and their growth as an iPass company.
That's awesome, man. That's a very fantastic intro into the life of Assad. I feel like I have a pretty good grasp on iPass. I know Mark has a very good grasp on iPass. For our listeners out there, if you were going to describe iPass and what Celigo does in the iPass space, what would you tell them that we do? Maybe a super simple explanation and then perhaps a more complex technical explanation, if you don't mind.
A super simple explanation would be an iPass is a product that allows businesses to automate workflows and business processes, right? In this context of like iPass and business process automation, I would think Celigo's primary value prop is that it easily creates or creates integrations between systems and applications, so data can flow smoothly, create efficiency in the process, and create efficiency for people who are involved in the process, right? I think the problems that we solve for various industries and verticals, some examples I can share are e-commerce, retail, high-tech, SaaS, etc. Typically, we run into customers that want to solve e-commerce type of problems, basically automating their front office, Amazon, Shopify storefronts with back office applications, right? For large, mid-sized customers, we have automated a lot of workflows and business processes. We're basically hire to retire, quote to cash, procure to pay, those kind of things, right? In a little bit more technical sense, I think iPass is a combination of a few flavors of features within it, right? One is like it can just be used as an integration platform, which talks to one system and another. It can also be used in a hub and spoke model, where we basically have an iPass connected to a data warehouse, where all data is being sent to a data warehouse from various different systems, and then that becomes the API into other systems and other business processes, right? So in that process, we have also automated a lot of data warehousing and data management solutions for our customers.
That's awesome. I think that's a fantastic intro. No matter how technical our listeners are, I think they should have a pretty good grasp on that. So thank you for explaining that, Assad. Mark, it looked like you were about to jump in.
Yeah, Jordan. Assad, I want to ask a question. I get this posed a lot to me, especially people that have been in technology for a long time, say 20 plus years. They're like, they hear that explanation, they're like, kind of sit and they think, and they'll be like, okay, so you guys are like a middleware solution. Well, as an Celigo as an iPass, are we a middleware solution? How are we? Or are we like similar to some of the legacy middleware solutions that people know from 15, 20 years ago?
Yeah, I would say we are more than a middleware solution. I think the differentiation for Celigo as an iPass versus some other tools that I've previously used or my teams have previously used is Celigo has a focus of the end user using the tool. It makes it so much easier for a Celigo customer to build integration. It's a very guided AI-based workflow that we've created where we have basically walked through a user in building out flows and connecting applications together. And this actually helps in faster time to value, even for business technologists who are up and coming, folks who want to actually build integrations themselves versus heavily depend on IT to always code the integration for themselves. So the trend these days is to move to more and more low code solutions. And if an iPass can do that and have that ability or agility to scale the business while actually being less dependent on IT resources, I think that's a game changer.
That's interesting. It just really speaks to the fact that iPass fits into the needs, into the mold of a modern enterprise, where within a modern enterprise, the IT teams are typically stressed. They typically don't have a lot of time. They are often under-resourced. And iPass, specifically Celigo, being a low-code, no-code platform, really enables the folks that aren't as technical as the IT team to begin to make more efficient kind of every single thing that they do. And I think, Mark, that was a fantastic way to pose that question because it really does set Celigo apart.
Yeah, some of us spent a lot of time talking about that day to day, and that was a really good distillation of it, right? It's and regardless of whether you've got a big existing integration team or you're starting automation integration for the first time, or maybe you're a partner and you're building out a practice, right? This has the tools you choose, and whether you choose modern tools that leverage a business technologist, and that's a key term there that you used, Assad. That a business technologist is not a software engineer. Very different skill sets, and while there's some overlap, and that's great, it changes the dynamic of in your staffing of your teams. And not that you still don't leverage software developers, and you should, because it's sometimes better to do coded things in the platform, but that approach really changes how you staff, compresses your projects. It's provides a lot of value to not have to leverage as many traditional developers, and tech savvy business users or business technologists, as Gartner calls, is really key.
Yep. And I think in addition to that, right, I mean, one is how you help the user guide through a process of building a simple to medium complexity integration. The ability to have connectors built and leveraging those connectors to connect applications. I think that's also a huge advantage to any iPass going into a newer space or selling into a customer. I think that's very attractive, and at least to me, when I have previously evaluated iPass, I always felt time to value is very important when we are bringing an iPass into the space, and having connectors always helps. It reduces the amount of time and effort and energy someone has to spend in understanding the data elements that connect to different systems. And if there's a connector already doing that, I think people leveraging that would really benefit from it.
Yeah, that always helps. I mean, so are you trying to say that your stakeholders don't give you an infinite amount of time to get everything done?
That's pretty funny. Well, so I'm curious with what you said in mind, Assad, the fact that, well, and you too, Mark, but just the fact that the employment landscape can be shaped and changed by a powerful iPass tool, meaning that you need less software developers and more business technologists. have you changed the way that you look at iPass or build an iPass product to ensure that that's the case across enterprise use cases?
Maybe state that question again. I want to understand really like um,
Sure. So let me see if I can do that. I guess the best way I can ask that is, are you keeping these low code, no code business technologists in mind as you build the platform? Like, how are you building Celigo specifically to enable those people to succeed? I guess that's a better way to phrase it. And you're muted, just a heads up.
And even before we jump into that question, if I was listening to this, I'd be asked for the first time, and this is the first time I heard this conversation, I'd ask myself, well, okay, I think I know what a business technologist, but maybe I'm not quite sure. What really is a business technologist? Because then that informs how that impacts everything else.
Yeah, I think what a business technologist is someone, as you said, Mark, previously, right? It's not a engineer, it's not from a technical background, but they know enough to use a tool that is intuitive and easy enough to use and build something like an integration, right? Or an automation, which is a workflow, a set of step-by-step tasks being automated, right? So a business technology is someone who is closer to the business, maybe within the business organization. They understand the business process really well. They're close to it. They know who are the personas involved in the business process, and what can be done to create efficiencies for those people, right? So they're very close to that business process, and they can, if they have technology in hand that they can take and which is intuitive enough, and they can start building a workflow, automate a business process, and it's a huge win for that business technologist as well as that department where they are building these automations. And at the same time, I think it's a huge win from an overall IT perspective as well, because for some of these tasks which are not highly strategic enough, which do not require a lot of complex logic, if business technologies within the business organization can automate things on their own, I think that actually saves IT time to get involved into these small nitty-gritty things, right? Which are still very valuable. But I think IT is always short in capacity, time bound on various different strategic objectives. So I think they can focus on those strategic objectives versus enable these business technologies to do more.
Awesome. That's a great breakdown. Appreciate that, Assad. We talked, or you mentioned, Assad, a little bit about AI, and kind of that's obviously a very hot button topic and something that Mark and I talk about pretty frequently on the podcast. But beyond being a very common term, how is Celigo, for our customers, currently incorporating AI and generative AI into our product, and what does that look like maybe 2, 3, 4, 5 years in the future for the platform?
Yeah. So I think one thing I would say is like AI is not new to Celigo, right? I mean, we've had AI, we've leveraged AI within our iPass platform, specifically in runtime operations, right? Where the product is, or that feature of AI is identifying and resolving API errors and data errors automatically. I think there is a stat out there where we are automatically resolving 95% of integration flows each month, right? And that's allowing a huge amount of like time savings collectively across our customer base, right? So that feature has been very widely known for our Celigo customers and in the industry. What we have added most recently is we've built out a AI connector where customers are able to harness the power of generative AI and reimagine a business process and how that business process can be automated using pre-built connector from Celigo to OpenAI. So that's one connector that we have built. The other thing which we have done is we've created an AI assistant, which is basically it's an embedded AI guidance that has trained over millions of successful integrations and our company's extensive knowledge base, and it's accelerating again time to value that I talked about, right, for developers as well as for business technologies. So that's an embedded AI assistant within our product right now. I think we want to kind of enhance, and going forward in the future, enhance these products and these features more and more, so they are able to basically converse in a way. We can write queries within our product, ask questions using OpenAI and the data that it is connected to. So it basically is an interactive tool and can help with building automations. It's not easy to think about like 5 years from now, Jordan, but I think it's something that we are really focused on developing on in terms of product.
Awesome. Thank you.
Yeah, Assad, I think, when there's a lot of people out there that hear about AI and they're very intrigued by it, in like mid-market business leaders, and by business leaders I don't mean technology leaders, but I mean business leaders across the board. They're really intrigued, and I see a lot of people leaning in. Just at a conference last week, arguably our biggest conference of the year, and talked to hundreds of people there, and this was one of the most recurring themes was when it kind of moves out of the core particular problem that someone was trying to solve, and they just start sort of riffing on their business. I saw a lot of people going towards this. There was so much buzz there. There's so much buzz in industry in general about AI. It's like, well, but how? And what I see a lot with these mid-market business leaders, that they want to do something. They're really intrigued, but they don't know what to do. This is the biggest thing I see, was like, well, I don't know. And there's certainly a lot of embedding in existing off-the-shelf products that they may own or be looking at buying. But certainly, I think we've seen a lot of potential outside of that. Maybe some of the most potential is when you pull the information in across multiple data sources. I'm curious to get your thoughts as a technology leader and a business leader, Assad, how you think about that. What your advice would be to somebody, a leader like this, like, well, I want to do something, but I don't know what to do. They're like, there's a way it could help their business. They just don't even know where to start.
Yeah, I mean, I would. That's a great question. I think the way I'm looking at this, or we are looking at this internally, me and my team, in terms of bringing more AI capabilities, generative AI capabilities, is our approach, right? We are very clear in terms of what AI technique and AI approach could be applied to which area of a business problem, right, or a business process. So I think I've kind of compartmentalized these various approaches and how they can be either used together to automate a business process or used in a silo. I can give you an example. Today we are working on a churn prediction model, which is basically the AI ML, data AI ML aspect of overall AI, right? That's the data AI ML. So we are using some random forest model. We're understanding historically what our churn data was, why customers churned. Then we are applying various different AI models, ML models to it, and then we are coming up with, hey, what could we predict in terms of customers that could churn? That's one side. We're using our OpenAI connector. Again, we are basically leveraging our own product here. We're using Celigo's OpenAI connector to connect to OpenAI, where we are automating a customer support use case. We are sending through massive amounts of historical data, ticket information that has come through, and that the information that we have, knowledge base that we have to solve tickets that will continue to come through from customers or from a support standpoint. We are basically gathering all that knowledge using a combination of OpenAI, Pinecone as a database, and then we are building out a chat bot for our reps internally to use to give them the best possible resolution for a customer problem that exists, right? So some of these are conceptual. We are doing proof of concepts. We are trying to improve our knowledge base. We are getting better at providing specific solutions and scoring of solutions. So we're trying these things out. That's basically using the OpenAI, ChatGPT, DALL-E, that kind of feature set, right? Or products. There are other embedded AI, right? So embedded AI is basically something like a Salesforce. What is Salesforce doing in terms of generative AI? How can we leverage and benefit from the work that Salesforce is doing in our business process? Same thing with Salesloft, Clary, and other products. So I've basically compartmentalized AI usage and AI application into these various buckets and trying to see where our business users and our teams, departments can benefit from. Again, a few things in concept, a few things in actually working model. I'm excited about like what potential it holds for us as a company, because if we implement some of these things, we can also share our knowledge externally. I want to be able to share it with our customers, but I'm really excited about the efficiency it's going to create internally for us.
Interesting. Thank you for breaking that down, Assad. For our listeners out there, how do a CIO and a vice president of strategy work together? Obviously, you guys know each other really well. You guys handle different aspects of different sides of the business. I don't get to be in the room with the two of you at the same time unless there's some huge conference or some huge Celigo event. But how does a CIO and how does a vice president of strategy work together? And how do you guys tolerate each other?
Well, I think my job is just to make Assad's life more difficult. So I just stir up all kinds of problems, and then his team's got to go try to solve them. So
no, I think Mark plays a big role, right, in terms of how our roadmap is set. I mean, we align. And Mark is humble also at the same time. I mean, he leads the go-to-market strategy, right, and the specific strategies within that execution of that. So I think those are very important areas of work for the company, for growth, for customer experience, and all of that. That there is a direct correlation of what Mark does in that area versus what it means for us as a technology roadmap, right? I think our goal is to really understand each of those strategies, work with Mark, work with other department heads to make sure we have the right technology solution, to make sure we have the right data solutions that we can actually deploy and help help the business achieve those strategies through technology, right? So that's where we partner a lot. We want to make sure we are aligned. Our roadmap is aligned with those strategic goals. The second is, I think, being data driven and how we use data to make decisions across the company. I mean, I as a CIO can enable data driven decision making, right, by providing the necessary tools and infrastructure. But I feel like the collaboration between Mark and I is very continuous, and Mark has been great at giving us inputs, giving us feedback in terms of how we can think about improving the data solutions that we have today versus what the business is looking for as we continue to grow as a company, right? So by working together effectively, we can drive innovative change. We can also make sure there is some discipline in terms of how we think about data, how we create data literacy across the company, and then set the organization for long-term success.
Yeah, well said, Assad. And I think you hit on a really good thing around the data, right? Because as we've become more of a data-driven company, and we've always had that desire, but certainly over the last 2 or 3 years, we've really transitioned to that in a big way. You know, it just makes you aware that the more data you have, the more data you want, and that it's always continual. And I kind of view a lot of what I do as often being on the sort of vanguard of that, being like, okay, well, what the what if, or okay, I have a hypothesis developed through intuition and seeing patterns. You're like, okay, well, we shouldn't run this by gut. Does the data support that? Or we see some data and it's like, okay, well, trying to correlate the best of both worlds, how to leverage the best of being data driven and also leverage intuition about the business, about the customers, about the vertical we're in, and bring those together, and then keep pushing. Because you always need, if you think about a meeting where you're presenting something, if you're really going to present an insight, you actually need way more data than you present, because you actually need to go another level, and sometimes 2 or 3 more levels deep to explore the whys behind it. Because if I present an insight, hey, it looks like X is happening, or X is happening in the business, everyone's like, okay, great. Why? And it's like, oh, well, we've done that and we've come back. So there's a lot of that data work behind the scenes, and that tends to push the limits of everybody, because we're actually trying to very often measure things that aren't very measurable. Or maybe we haven't been able to measure it, or we haven't had the access to the data. So it's always there's a lot of back and forth, but it pushes our capabilities forward in a lot of different ways. And I think that's where it's really key from a strategy perspective to have a very good working relationship with the technology leadership arm of the business and those capabilities. Because if you don't, you're just not going to be able to get those insights or be able to trust them. That's really tricky.
Great.
And now we've got our podcast host on mute. And so rarely happens, but once in a while.
I'm turning red. I was trying to say, sorry, my dog was barking in the background, but I'm just glad that I can bring you two together, and I know it's my job to do so. So I'm happy you both are here, and I'm happy you both get along. Apologies for the quick mute, but let me change gears a little bit. And I think this is a question perhaps for both of you, Assad on the technology side and Mark on the business strategy side. We talked a little bit about the future of AI, and that's, like you said, Assad, a little bit challenging to know what's going to happen because it's growing at an exponential rate. But behind the scenes, I've seen some charts and some ideas and some presentations from Mark and others about the future of Celigo and the future of iPass in general. And obviously, we're many years past middleware, like we talked before. But in the next 5 or so years, how does Celigo and how does iPass, as a business and as a kind of technology category, how do we continue to grow? How do we continue to push boundaries? And what's on the horizon for us as a business in terms of product, in terms of strategy, and in terms of everything? Like, what's next for Celigo? And you guys can divvy that up however you so see fit.
I'll let our guest answer.
It's not an easy one, right? I mean, things are changing, as you said, pretty fast, right? There are different techniques folks are incorporating in their own products. But I think we have a collective vision, at least at the exec level, that we are all aligned on. We want to make sure we see Celigo as an AI-driven automation platform for all digital transformation needs that customers can use, right? In one of my articles, I think I share about intelligent automation, right? It's basically an orchestration of like various capabilities working in unison, right, to transform a business process. So I see Celigo as central to that intelligent automation ecosystem, where iPass plays a very vital role in connecting all capabilities together and then enabling that orchestration itself, right? So, and hence, like my role over here as CIO at Celigo is like, one is I'm advocating, evangelizing the use of our product internally. My team and I are leading the way in intelligent automation, right? And how we can internally create scale and efficiency through automation and multiple automations, right? Again, it's centrally ensuring that we benefit out of our own product and its capabilities in orchestrating that, right? And along the way, we are starting to put together and also share externally some of the best practices that our customers, prospect, and anybody in the industry who want to think about hyper automation, intelligent automation can leverage, right? I think that's very important because there's so many tools out there today that become a part of digital transformation, but people don't know how to specifically like take create efficiency in how to use those tools, create governance around those tools, versus those tools implemented in silos, not talking to each other, right? So I think there are things out there which we can continue to share. So I feel in the hyper automation, intelligent automation space, Celigo has a big role to play with its product capabilities. And since it's already AI driven, I think it will become a differentiator for definitely technology leaders as well as CIOs and executives to look at as an asset. Mark?
Yeah, I think that was a great breakdown, Assad. I would say I think we're on the cusp of a massive shift in the way that the mid-market and really companies in general, but especially the mid-market, thinks about automation and digital transformation. Right now, there's a lot of people that would be listening to this, or I know other opportunities where I get to talk about this, and we kind of throw the word digital transformation around a lot, and we're really comfortable with it. But a lot of people hear that in mid-market companies, whether they're CIOs, they're in IT, or they're business leader or boots on the ground. They hear that and they view it as something that lives off far away. That's like, oh, that's a McKinsey buzzword, and that's something for really big Fortune 1000 companies. But the reality is, every business is actually going through digital transformation right now, whether they realize it or not. Every company's buying SaaS apps like at a crazy pace. Any company that embarks on implementing a modern ERP, they're in the process of implementing the core of digital transformation. And most of the time, they're not explicitly even realizing, like, oh, we need to close our books faster. We need more visibility into our real-time financial status. That they need digital transformation, and they've started on that journey. And I really see way more companies, because right now I think the best companies that we work with represent maybe 5% of mid-market companies out there that are really leading, and then we work with others that are starting on that journey, and they're getting some gains, but they're not as broad as they could be. They should be automating more, and we're at this cusp of that really tipping over. There will be in 10 years, we'll see, if you're a mid-market company and you haven't done widespread automation in the organization and leverage tools to a strong extent, and implemented these modern tools, and you have a person that just helps automate the business as part of it, you won't be it won't be a successful company. There will be roles existing focused on automation that don't exist now. And there needs to be, because I see the companies that are doing that right now. They have think of them as automators or builders, and they go through the organization automating processes. They become in extremely high demand within the organization, and those companies are accelerating. We see them, and their growth far outpaces very similar companies that are customers of ours that don't approach it that way. They still grow, but the ones that really embrace. And so I think that all leads in a direction that this is only accelerated. So I think we're really on that cusp of this becoming, this is the core to mid-market companies being truly successful in the next 20 years, is adopting this and really changing how they think. Automation is not a big company thing. It's for every company to be competitive in a global landscape, because it's how you remain competitive with a rapidly changing environment and dramatically changing cost structures, whether they're around labor, global competition, global supply chain changes. All of those lead you in the direction of automation to be competitive and successful.
Yeah, and I think your point here, Mark, is also that automation, digital transformation doesn't always have to be a plethora of tools working together. It could just be an area of business process, which is like you called an example about financial close automation, right? Or speeding up the close process. So that itself could be like just like couple of couple of products working together, but the idea and intent is looking at the business process and understanding where efficiencies could be created so that the faster time to close can be achieved. That's a great point. Yeah.
It's interesting kind of from like an outsider perspective. Like, let's zoom out 50 years, people typing on typewriters. 20 years ago, people are utilizing computers. Maybe 10 years ago is really maybe even 15, but the advent of massive level of SaaS apps, essentially handling everything from calendar scheduling to finances to automation, to things like that. And when people like someone like me who's not a technology expert and definitely not a business expert, think what's the next logical step? There aren't a lot of answers that make more sense than a way to connect all of these different apps. And so what that shows me, and again, I'm not really the business or technology expert, but for people out there who might be in kind of a similar mindset to me, where they're not the leaders of companies, but the ones who would be the purchasers of iPass and the utilizers of iPass, is that iPass, especially when driven by AI, is the next logical step. I can't really think of anything that would be the next logical step other than, hey, we have 50, we have 100, we have 500 SaaS applications. What can we do next to increase efficiency and effectiveness? Most obvious, the lowest hanging fruit is let's connect all these applications, have data flowing between them, have the applications talking to each other, and let's glean as much as we can from that data flowing between these applications as possible. And I don't know, that just makes me very excited. That makes me proud to be in this industry. And I think that's probably why both of you are in this industry, because not only it's the next logical step, but the amount of change that we can create, the amount of impact that we can have on small, medium, and large enterprise businesses is unbelievable. And so I just think it speaks a lot to the iPass market in general, and what the two of you are building and projecting in terms of Celigo as a company. Now that I'm done doing the "we're not worthy" thing to you guys from Wayne's World, I'm going to change gears a little bit again. And I always talk to Mark about how our guests, when they are technology leaders, they might feel, regular employees might feel a little bit detached from them because they are technology leaders. And that's why I love talking to folks like you, Assad, and you too, Mark. But one thing that kind of eludes me, and that is not a technology leader, is an engineer. I know they work with the lights off. I know other computers have green and black matrix numbers going everywhere. And I know they only drink Monster energy drinks. But Assad, since you work with all of these engineer folks, when you're not dealing with them on a technical side of things, what are you doing to engage and inspire engineers to build products that people like me, regular business users, can and want to use? So how are you leading engineers to create a successful product for non-technical people?
Yeah, I think it's about painting a really good picture of the vision, right? And the value that the work that they're spending time on is generating, right? I think it's very easy for engineers or developers to be in the details of the code and what they're building and how they're building it and all of that, but they really need to know what's the value it's creating for the organization. I think that will keep them engaged, that will keep them motivated. And keep them motivated, keep them going and do more, right? Other than that, I think helping those engineers get access to the right tooling so they have efficiency with the work that they are doing, I think has also been for me a differentiator in terms of like how they spend time and how productive they are with the time that they spend on working on things, right? So developer efficiency is very near and dear to me, and I make sure they have access to the right tools that will generate and help them out with efficiency. Other than that, I think I make it a point across the team that we create a fun environment We create an environment where there is autonomy. We create an environment where people can take risks. I think that all contributes to overall engagement and productivity with the work, and when they show up to do their work. I mean, I think so far those that thinking has worked really well. Again, I mean, I want to make sure, like, they are, like, developers usually tend to be more more external, or maybe working in the background. I think my team over here at Celigo and previously has been a team where they have direct interaction with stakeholders, that actually helps them build more empathy in understanding the business challenge, as well as, working harder or smarter to actually resolve or solve for those business challenges, right? Because they have that empathy on first-hand working with the business partner.
In the best of ways, it sounds like you are a very positive enabler, whether that's of efficiency or good attitudes. I think that's real important. We are coming close to the end, and I want to give Mark an opportunity to see if there's anything that he wants to wrap up with before we pack up and ship out. Anything on your end, Mark?
No, the only thing I'd emphasize is what Assad said about getting his team to understand the business problem being solved. And when I had development teams in the organization that I was running at various points, or when they reported to me directly, that was the biggest thing that I always tried to get them to focus on. And not just developers, but especially consultants. It's like, if you don't know how the work you're doing ties to the business objective of your customer, you need to stop and go back until you do. Because it keeps you in check. It keeps you in line, whether you're a developer or a consultant, or you're doing you're doing digital marketing work. All of it, you need to be really clear on how that ties to the objective of the customer, and it acts as a check. And I think that's, that was awesome that Assad mentioned it, because for me, that was always the number one thing. And if you go use that as a foundational guide, and you can be on an internal team, you get all kinds of different teams. It always helps provide clarity and direction. That people kind of enables people to make their own decisions, and go back and do a course correction when maybe the project's drifted out, or their initiative is drifted out from being grounded.
I think something Celigo does fantastically well from a leadership perspective, all the way down to even me in my role as social media, is understanding what the customer needs on a business, personal success level, and delivering a product or a case study, or anything that truly speaks to solving their challenging problems. And so I think Assad and Mark, both of you, said that differently yet eloquently. And so thank you both for answering that question and clarifying. Now, before we go, I like to end this with one quick question for you, Assad.
Mm-hmm.
Like I said, you're not just a work robot, and I say this at the end of every podcast.
Mm-hmm.
Executives are not work robots. They are real people. So for those listening, could you tell us a little bit about yourself outside of work? What are your passions, hobbies, interests? Obviously, you have a lovely family, but what are you interested in? What do you like to do, and how do you stay sane when you're not working 24 hours a day for Celigo?
Yeah. I think anytime I get a chance, I like to travel a lot, right? And I like to be outdoors, exploring what nature has to offer to us. So I'm an avid hiker too, so I like to do that a lot. I've taken up reading lately, and I've read a bunch of various things, both tied to technology, tied to learning more from other companies, and how companies like refresh when strategies aren't working and things like that. I tend to play basketball time to time to keep me in game shape, right? Mostly lately, I've taken up woodworking, which now it's kind of getting a serious hobby. I've done a bunch of stuff with woodworking.
That's awesome. I am proud to report you showed up with no dust or wood shavings on you to this podcast. So thank you for that. I did not know the woodworking, but that's really cool. I'll definitely have some questions to ask you. But with that in mind, Assad, as always, great to talk to you. Thank you for being a fantastic guest on the Celigo Technology Leaders Podcast. Mark, as always, my co-host, thank you for joining me and helping run this really interesting and in-depth conversation. For those of you still listening, I'm Jordan, the social media manager over at Celigo. Thanks for joining us on the podcast. Stick around. We'll have a new episode live in a week or two. Bye, everybody.
Thank you.
Thanks for having me.